Hi, welcome to Chatham. I'm Gray and this is my co-host Gavin. Today we have Miss Cindy Schmidt here. Miss Cindy Schmidt is a volunteer with the Chatham County Historical Association. She spent 35 years working in health information management and technology. Miss Cindy has lived in Chatham County for 13 years.
Thank you very much.
You're so welcome. How are you? What's going on?
Very good.
Very good.
I'm glad to be here. Very happy.
We're really happy to have you. Have some pre-written questions, but we'll see where that takes us.
The first question is, what is your personal definition of progress?
My personal definition of progress is moving towards some goal that we've all set as a community. So if we are moving forward to something that we've all agreed to do, that's kind of my definition of progress.
Okay.
So you think progress is more of a community effort?
I think there's many different kinds of progress. We can have individual progress when we set a goal for ourselves and we're working towards getting that goal done.
Yeah.
But as a community, I think we have to have a community goal. So if we all want to be better educated, I think that's great as an individual, but I also think the community itself needs to have the goal of being better educated. So we need to work for our societal goals as well as individual goals.
Do you have any goals that you do you have any goals you hope will happen in Chatham County?
Absolutely. One of the things that's going on in Chatham County right now is we're having a lot of development. And one of the goals that I would like the community to have is to have good, sustainable development. Not just development that's geared towards making individuals money, but sustainable development that helps the community and whatever the community goals are. A lot of people move here because they like the rural feel and the agricultural feel, but more development that's not controlled and not sustainable is going to affect our ability to have that environment.
It's not very rural anymore.
There are many places that are rural, and I hope people enjoy those places, and we can keep those places. And that's part of our goal, part of our progress, is to keep some of that.
Yeah.
Another question. Have you seen any progress take place in Chatham County?
Absolutely. So, as part of the Historical Association, I know a great deal about the history of Chatham County. Chatham County was born in 1771. We were part of Orange County before that. During that time, we were British. Some of the progress that we made from becoming British to becoming U.S. is that we decided we didn't like tyranny in our government. And so we progressed from a place of tyranny where people were telling us what to do, telling us how to spend our money, telling us all those things, to a place where we decided we wanted a better government. And we created that better government. There was also a time frame when we went through the Civil War here. And differences between before the Civil War and after the Civil War. That's a lot of progress.
Yeah.
In diversity, in acceptance, in how we view each other. Other places of progress are in schools. Believe it or not, when Chatham County was first here, we didn't have any schools. We had academies that you could pay to send your kid to. But you had to have money in order to do that. And now we have a much better education system where we all pay in and we all get the benefit from it. So we've made a lot of progress in a lot of different areas. And we should all celebrate all those areas of progress.
Has any specific progress in Chatham County really stuck out to you?
So a couple. We have a very different society than we used to have. The agrarian and economic system of plantations and that kind of stuff, we no longer do that. It's much more even up. We all have opportunities. Whether we take advantage of those opportunities or not, that's the individual's progress or not progress. But at least the opportunities are available. And I think that's a huge progress forward. In the more recent past, Chatham Park is one of our things that we are going through progress. Some people don't think it's a community goal. Some people think it's more of an individual goal. And we'd like to have it more of a community goal rather than an individual goal.
How do you think we can make Chatham Park more of a community goal?
People need to get involved in their government. Too many times, people are very concerned with making a living and bringing up their children and perhaps taking care of their parents. And they don't feel like they have time to get involved in their government. But involvement in government is voting with knowledge rather than just going to the poll without knowledge. But the other thing is, we all in Chatham County, our government is very accessible to us. The town government is very accessible, the county government is very accessible. And the community just needs to understand that and use that access. Too many people sit and think, oh, I can say things on Facebook, I can say things on other social media platforms, and my government is listening to me. Maybe true, maybe not. But they can call their town manager, they can call their representative on the Chatham Commissioner Council. They can call those people and talk to them, and they should. That's an avenue that is open to them, and that's a community standard here in Chatham County that should be raised up and made available and make sure everybody knows that that's available.
Yes.
I have a question. Okay, so do you recall the formation of Jordan Lake, and can you share any insight in the progress in eminent domain meetings in held in Fayetteville rather than locally, missing notes from the meetings, how the community changed for the better or for the worse?
Yeah, that's a long question, yeah. So I wasn't here when Jordan Lake happened, but because I'm affiliated with the Historical Association, I give a lot of talks on Jordan Lake, so I had to do a lot of research in order to figure out what to tell everybody about the history of Jordan Lake. So Jordan Lake, the purpose of Jordan Lake, according to the documents, is that North Carolina had to pay to rebuild Fayetteville after floods. Fayetteville is a very, very important transportation hub for North Carolina, and so the state was always going to rebuild it. In the 1930s, the state decided to try and keep Fayetteville from flooding. That's where Jordan Lake came from. It was supposed to keep the water back up here in Chatham County and be let out to go towards Wilmington on the Cape Fear. And the Cape Fear goes right through Fayetteville. So that's the way Jordan Lake was formed. At the bottom of Jordan Lake is the New Hope River. The New Hope River is a very shallow river basin, and that's why Jordan Lake is so wide. Jordan Lake Dam dams both the New Hope and the Haw, but it doesn't dam very much of the Haw, but it dams a huge amount of New Hope, and that's because the New Hope River Basin is so shallow. Well, I'm originally from Kansas, and I know that the best land for agriculture is bottomland. Because as the rivers flood, it deposits a lot of debris on the land, and that makes good, fertile soil. So the people who lived where Jordan Lake is now were relatively low socioeconomic people. And that's because it's good bottom land, but when it floods, you get absolutely no crop. Right? So you're taking your chances on planting there. And they took their chances, and most years they got a good crop, some years they got absolutely no crop. So when Jordan Lake came along, those are the people that were affected most. My research shows, the information that I have today, shows that the people that were living on that land before Jordan came along were offered reasonable rates for their land. But even if you're afforded market rates for your land at the time, when you have that many people who are receiving a check and they want to buy land just like that somewhere else, all those people are going to be competing to buy that land somewhere else, and so the price of the land that they want to buy is going to raise, and they're not going to be able to afford what they had before Jordan Lake came. So Did they do eminent domain? Absolutely they did. There was a specific sawmill that did not want to get bought out. He wanted a sawmill.
Yeah.
And eventually, after negotiations broke down, eminent domain was declared, he was given a check and thrown off his land. So eminent domain absolutely totally happened. And the low socioeconomic people that were there had to go compete to buy something somewhere else, and frequently were outcompeted. And so they got a check and they got the land, and the ancestral land that they had for years and years and years. Their kids, their grandkids, their great-grandkids grew up on it, and they were out of that land. One of the interesting things that I found was when the Corps of Engineers wanted to do their studies in order to get the lake done, they had to ask everybody. Department of the Interior, Department of this, Department of that, and that's one big book study. But part of what they had to do was ask the community for its input. That was put in an annex, and so far to this day I haven't been able to find an annex and what the community said. I also understand that the community meetings that were held about Jordan Lake were done in Fayetteville, not here in Chatham County. So you kind of have to wonder why they did that versus having community meetings here, when the community here was the one that was going to be much more affected by having a lake here. Fayetteville would be impacted by not having a lake here, but we were certainly more impacted having a lake here. Yeah, it's interesting.
It is very good. Do you think overall Jordan Lake has had a positive impact or a negative impact on the community?
I think you have to define which community you're talking about.
Okay.
In the community that is now underwater, I think it had a devastating impact. On the community as it exists today, I think there are a lot of developers who make money off of the land sales going on today. I think there are many developers who are appreciative of the water they can pull out of Jordan Lake for housing and for commercial uses. So that makes the land around there more valuable because it has a water source. I think if you ask Greensboro if they like Jordan Lake, they'd have to say yes, because their pollution comes down the hall and then it's distributed up into Jordan Lake and settles out, and then pure water can go on down to Fayetteville. So I think if you're Fayetteville, there's lots of benefits. I think if you're the previous owners, I think it's pretty tough. I think Chatham County is making the most out of what Jordan Lake is and can be in the future. And I think they're really trying to look at the sustainability of Jordan Lake. Several years ago, we had algae blooms all the time. We don't have that anymore because it's been better managed.
Yeah.
I know that we have pollution in Jordan Lake. It's getting better because of the governmental entities that are looking at that. So today's communities, I think, are much better off. Yesterday's communities, probably not much.
Another question is, do you have a personal project or some change that is special to you that you have participated in?
Well, I participate in a lot of things at the Historical Association.
Yeah.
One of the things that gives me a great deal of joy is the 4th grade field trip. So we offer a 4th grade field trip to everybody in Chatham County.
Yeah.
Public, private, charter schools, they all have the opportunity to come in and learn about Chatham history, Chatham government, Chatham civics, and just making Chatham a little more accessible to 4th graders. It's a joy. We do that 2 times a month, basically throughout the school year, and I get stopped in grocery stores and stuff and say, "Oh, you're the history lady. We know history. We do that." And so it's a lot of fun. We do programs all over the place, a lot in senior living areas and assisted living areas, and it's wonderful to be able to include people who are not from here, but live here now, and teach them about our community standards. Here's the things that we all know about Chatham County. The fire is a big one. If I can tell people who weren't here for the fire in the courthouse, about the fire in the courthouse, and tell them the stories of how the community got together and made that an okay thing, couldn't be wonderful, but made it an okay thing, and brought the community together, and teach them our community standards. So whether they come from California or they come from New York, they understand our community standards, and now that they live here, they can participate in our community a little bit better.
Another question. What is the role of storytelling in history, and what is missing in the collection and interpretation of history for students today?
Yeah, so storytelling is huge, because when I was learning history, and even today when I learn history, if I learn it through a story, like the courthouse story, the courthouse fire story, I can remember a lot more details if I learn it as a story rather than just learn it as cold details. I think part of what's missing in the history today is the complete history. I know that storytelling adds a lot of adjectives and can add a lot of editorializing. Some of that is good, but if you're adding adjectives in a negative way, it might not serve the community the best. And so I think some of the things that are missing is not just here's history, but here's history in context. And I think we need to understand that context and be presented that context instead of just, well, like the Chatham, the courthouse fire. If I just talk about the courthouse fire and I don't talk about the way the community came together after the fire, it's missing something. And so I think some of Chatham history is that way. I think some avenues are being presented without being in context. And I think that's a problem.
Another question is, how does oral history offer richness that written history can lack?
Oral history. So I have a history club, Cyrus City History Club, and that's what we do a lot of, is what do you remember? Tell me what you remember. And we have half a dozen people in the room, and the richness comes from their memories, because we never remember exactly the same thing. We can be present at the same event and be talking about it from two different perspectives. So when we get 6 people in the room who all witness the same event or all participating in the same kind of event, you can hear the different perspectives of it. Maybe there's an older black woman and a younger white man and a Hispanic individual. And then we can hear it, and the richness that comes out of that wouldn't be possible if we only asked one person. And so those oral histories are very rich in remembrance, because they're going to remember it from, oh, my mom said this, or my dad said that, or my great uncle said this about that event. And that's going to color your recollection. So that richness gets brought forward to this generation, which is great.
Do you wish that was shown more in schools, or maybe it is shown in schools, but?
So I've been to some schools to try to talk about different things that happened in Chatham County, and I think that students are hungry for that, rather than just what's written in a textbook or what can be said. So having someone come in and do a program like Donald Matthews or one of the other long-time Chatham residents, and having students ask them questions, that's the richness. Get what they remember, but understand that they have a particular perspective, and the students need to put that into context with perhaps other speakers as well. So yeah, I think students are hungry for that.
Do you have a story or wisdom to share that speaks to a universal truth or a life lesson that benefits younger generations to hear?
So I thought about that question a lot, and I think my answer is you need to be curious. With everything that you're taught, you need to be curious. So when somebody presents you information, certainly listen to it, but be sure and ask questions. What's your perspective in telling that story? Or what do you know around that story? Or where did that story come from? Did that story come from your mom, your dad? Where did that history come from? And I think that's our responsibility, our individual responsibility. We need to be curious, so that when we're presented information, and it's great information, but it's like, how do I put that where did that come from? Who wrote that? Because everybody has a perspective. Even the guys that write down our history today or our history in the past, they have a perspective. So we need to ask what that was and be curious about it. And it's a lifelong curiosity that never ends. So when you go on your first job, you need to be curious about what happened before you were there. You need to be curious about the goals of the organization. How can you help those goals? So curiosity, I think, and make sure that no one tells you not to be curious.
Do you have any other things you would like to share?
Well, I appreciate this school asking about these things. This is great. This is one of the things that we want to support because it is a great way to be curious about history. So thank you guys so much for inviting all the folks and doing this project with us, especially during the semi-quincentennial next year, American 250th. So kudos to you guys for going through the effort and doing this
Thank
stuff.
you for coming.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us. Super happy to have you here.
Yeah.
We did it.